Okay, welcome to week 14. This is our mental challenge, and this is self-regulation part 2. Now again, we talked a little bit about self-control, because again, if we have good self-regulation, we don't even need to have self-control. Self-control can be difficult to have, and what we found is that actually having self-control, for us, for people, it's kind of like a battery. Sometimes you have a lot of battery charge. Sometimes you have very little battery charge. Sometimes your battery completely goes dead, okay? Same thing with self-control. Sometimes we can have a lot of self-control and it's easy to have self-control. Other times it can be harder, okay? How could this be? So again, let's talk about maybe if you have a brother or sister, okay? They can make us angry sometimes, okay? That's what brothers and sisters do. We can make them angry too sometimes, okay? Just what happens, okay? Here's the thing. If we've had a really fun day, let's say we did something really super exciting, okay? And we had a lot of fun, and now my brother or sister is being kind of mean or whatever the case is. It can be easier for me to not do something where I'm push them or hit them or whatever if they're being mean. If I've had a really good day, if I've had a lot of fun, my self-control, my battery is charged. So it's easy for me to have self-control. But what if I have a really bad day? What if it was a miserable day, maybe I had a lot of homework and I had to get chores done and I didn't do the chores properly that I should have, my brother's making me mad or my sister's making me mad. If I've had a hard day, what if I'm also really tired? If I'm tired and I'm upset already and now my brother or sister is getting on me, it's gonna be harder for me to have self-control, okay? So again, how can we use self-regulation so we don't have to rely on self-control, okay? I'm gonna give an example here. I had a student and the student, his parents came to me and asked me if I could help talk to their son about this. This kid was, he was doing a summer camp, not one of our summer camps, but it was another summer camp he was at. And he was really having trouble. There was another kid in that summer camp and they were just butting heads. They were really having a hard time. And so he kept getting in trouble. And the counselors at this camp were basically telling his parents that if he keeps getting in trouble, he's gonna get kicked out of this camp. And he was supposed to do this camp for like the next 3 weeks or something like that, okay? So his parents asked if I could help. And so I sat down with him and we talked about it. And we talked about, okay, well, how can we have self-regulation so you don't even need self-control? Because it's hard, self-control is hard. This person's making you angry, you know you shouldn't push them, you know you shouldn't yell at them, but it's hard sometimes, it's really hard. So how can we have self-regulation so you're not even in that situation? And so what we talked about is, first of all, we figured out, okay, where are you getting in trouble? And with this camp, there were different drills and games that they were doing, and when they were doing the games and the drills, he was fine. It was during the free time. When there was free time, he was getting into arguments with this kid, and they were butting heads and they were having a hard time, okay? So we talked about, okay, well, if you're having trouble during free time, if you're doing fine during the drills, you're doing fine during the exercises, it's during free time. What could you do during free time where you're not even around this kid? And he said, oh, I could go play with my friends. I could ask if we could go play over here. He likes to do these things over here. Great, okay? So if you can put yourself in a different spot, that's fantastic, okay? Now here's the thing though, and I talked to him about this. I said, what happens if that kid follows you? What should you do? Should you get angry and hit him? No, that's how you're getting in trouble, okay? What can you do? And so he said, okay, the first thing to do is if that kid follows you, ask him not to. Say, hey, I don't want to get in trouble. Please, I want to play over here by myself, over here. Please leave me alone. Now, what if that doesn't work? What if he still follows you around? And we talked about this, and this happened. This happened. The kid started following him, and he said, hey, please leave me alone. And the kid kept following him because he wanted to egg him on. So I said, okay, well, what you can do, go find the teacher, go find the counselor, go over to them and say, hey, I don't want to play with this kid. I want him to leave me alone. I don't want to get in trouble. And so he did that. He went over and he found the counselor and he told the counselor this, and the counselor knew. The counselor knew these two had been butting heads and getting in fights. And so the counselor said, hey, he told the other kid, you need to be respectful of him, leave him alone. Why don't you go over there and play and he can go over there. And so they did. And guess what happened the rest of the day? They didn't get in trouble. They didn't fight. They didn't have any situations whatsoever. And the next day he did the same thing. And the next day he did the same thing. And guess what? He didn't get in trouble again. So you can have self-regulation. Think ahead. How am I getting in trouble? How is it hard for me to have self-control? Where can I put myself where I don't get in trouble, where I don't even need to have self-control, where it's easier for me. Because again, when he's playing with the other kids, he was fine. It was just this one kid he was having trouble with. So if he could get himself away from that, if he goes over to the counselor or plays close to the counselor where the counselor can see the other kid comes over, the counselor can say, hey, you guys need to leave each other alone. That helps. So for the question this week, this is gonna be a tough one. I'm gonna see if you guys can figure this out. If you want help from your parents, you can get that. The question is, what is something in the past where you have gotten in trouble? Maybe you got in trouble at school, maybe you got in trouble at a camp, maybe you got in trouble with your parents, okay? But where is something that you've gotten in trouble, and how could you use self-regulation? How could you put yourself back in that situation where you don't get in trouble? How could you use self-regulation so that you don't get in trouble like that? If you could do it all over again, what could you do differently? How could you use self-regulation? And I'm not saying, how can you use self-control? Well, this person may be angry, so I'm just not gonna push them. I'm not gonna hit them. That's self-control. How can you put yourself in a totally different situation where you wouldn't get in trouble at all the first time? So how could you use self-regulation in your life? Can you think of an example? Okay, and that's this week's challenge. Good luck with that.